So Jan had asked, I had posted up on Slack, which is our internal message board, about an event I did called Parks on the Air. And then Jan could not get hold of our presenter. And so she asked me if I could do a presentation. So I put this together, and it's better than last time. Last year when she asked me to fill in for somebody, I think there was a lot of disappointed people because the person I replaced was an astronaut. So we were supposed to have an astronaut. A lot of people showed up. It was a standing room only, and they got me. So we're going to talk about an event. We're going to talk about amateur radio today, and I'm going to tie it into Texas Master Naturalists through an activity called Parks on the Air. But first, let's talk about ham radio. This was I'm not your regularly scheduled presenter today. So what is amateur radio? Amateur radio is referred to as ham radio. Commonly, it's the non-commercial use of radio frequencies for personal communication, experimentation, self-training, and emergency services. Does not use internet or cell phone towers. There are 3 levels of license: technician, general, and extra. And you must pass a test to receive your license from the FCC. And once you pass your test, you get a call sign. My call sign is KI5QVM. And you are familiar with call signs: KILT, KLOL, rock and roll, KIC, KPRC, WKRP in Cincinnati, right? So those are all licensed call signs that you hear. And all these are, there's 3 different, when we talk about radio, you can have VHF, UHF, and HF. And on your TV channels, y'all remember the more seasoned people here? You used to have 2 knobs on your TV, right? You had 2, 11, and 13 at the top. And then if you wanted to watch the bottom channels, you had to put the top knob on what? UHF, U, right? So it transmitted, that U stood for UHF. The people that are younger than 40 have no idea what I'm talking about. So when you think about ham radio, this may be what you think of, right? You got radar from MASH. You got the longest day ever. You can see that big radio. All that behind her is radio. You may think about military, right? See that handsome man in the middle there on that radio? That's me on a Singar's radio in the Army. It wasn't my main job, but that day it was. And they've come a long way. So this is what modern day radio can look like. Here is my radio. It looks very much like a CB radio, right? And then you have these smaller radios right here. And this radio right here. So this radio is $25. So you can buy a $25 radio if you get a license. And if you look in on this, this is from Last Man Standing, the series with Tim Allen. Tim Allen is a licensed ham operator in real life. The FCC issued them a call sign for the show, and they actually made contacts on the air. They talked to people. On the left-hand side of this photo, you'll see some framed awards. And those are awards that you get for completing different things in ham radios. We'll talk about that later. But on the far right-hand side, you'll see up there, it says KB, K5YZE, and K2TV. Those are postcards, and we'll talk about those more in 1 minute. So the United States has about 780,000 licensed amateur radio operators, and there's just over 3 million in the whole world. And this map that you're looking at, earlier I said you didn't need satellite to listen to do this, or internet, but you can use satellite and internet. I hooked my radio to my computer, and these are the paths that my signal was getting out. I used 5 watts of power, and I made in 4 hours I made 2,000 contacts. So it was beacons though. I'm sending out a signal. Somebody says, "Hey, I hear you," and vice versa. And it goes into a computer, and you can study propagation and the sunspots and things like that. For me, when I think about ham radio, it's very nostalgic in the sense that there's a lot to learn, and it's like some old school technology. When I posted up on Slack, one of our members, Jody Burrell, she said, when I was a kid, I would take my dad's ham radio out in the backyard and just see who was on the air. The most exciting contact I remember was raising a U.S. Navy sailor on a ship docked in the Philippines. He'd been trying to contact someone who could tell him the final score of the Cubs games. So my brother and I ran to get a newspaper and provide information. So obviously, I don't know what year this was, before the internet, right? Before cell phones. And that is how you could communicate, right? And, you know, growing up, I would go to my granddad's house, and he had this big pile of coins, and we would go through the coins, and we would pick out the coins that weren't regular coins, right? Like mercury dimes and things, wheat pennies. And if it was a foreign coin, that was big bonus. I would carry that thing around, and I would try to figure out, I'd try to find somebody that could tell me where this coin came from. I'd ask my teachers. Eventually, I'd end up at the library, right? I'm trying to go through these coin books and just figure out where this coin's from. And with and that's all very exciting to me. I mean, that is just, you never know. And with technology now, I think we get robbed of that. We have instant gratification. If I want a coin now, I don't need to collect a stamp or look for a coin. I can just order one online. If I want to see where something's from, I can just take a picture of a coin or even a rock or a plant or a flower or a lizard or whatever, and it'll automatically tell me. This was some contacts that I made last week, and I had to look up like 4 of these. I didn't know what Asiatic Russia was. What does that mean? And then Central Kiribati, I spoke with them. That's in the Phoenix Islands, and there's a huge wildlife refuge there. So you talk to these people, and then you got to go look up where they're from and read about it. It's a big rabbit hole, but you're just throwing your signal out in the air. It's like fishing, and you don't know what you're going to get. So you can look up people's call signs online. And those 2 postcards that I showed you in the picture from Last Man Standing was one of them said K5YZE. And I know that's pretty small. But what this says is this is the operator that sent that card. I was first licensed in 1959 at age 14 in Shreveport. He talks about the solar cycle. He said, I upgraded to my general license in 1960. I operated Navy Mars in Vietnam in 1968. I was with the Navy Seabees, Camp Eagle, and he talks about operating radios and then carrying it on into his civilian life. When he got back out, he got it back into it. The second postcard that was on the wall was K2TV, and he says, my name is Bob, and I've been licensed since 1960. My interest in radio led me to a 42-year career in radio and television broadcasting, of which almost 40 years has been with CBS Television Network, right? So the sense of wonder and excitement and the learning and the figuring out how to build all this stuff and do all this stuff, very exciting. And it played a huge role in STEM back before there was STEM, right? Like these people, a lot of these radio operators went on to be engineers. So here were some of y'all may have had some of these, I don't know. Crystal radio kits, the Heath kit was another one that you could build. The 50-in-1, I had that one from Radio Shack. And I was talking at dinner with somebody about this. That bottom left hand, the bottom left one says, safe, easy to build, no electricity. Right? Anybody ever build a crystal radio kit as a kid? Yeah, got a couple people. No electricity. It's just picking signals up out of the air on a coil, and you have one earpiece and you listen, right? It's like magic, right? So that right corner is my nephew. He built that little radio that he's holding in his hand. Not quite the same thing as these other kits, but it was good to see him. So we talked about what ham radio is. But what can you do with amateur radio? The reason it's called ham radio, by the way, they believe they're trying to tie it down. Back in the day when you had telegraphs, you had professional Morse code senders. And then after World War I, when they opened up amateur radio to civilians, people started doing Morse code, but they weren't professionals, they're amateurs, and they said they were ham-fisted, right? They were just clumsy. And so ham radio. So amateur radio is a bit of a slur, I guess, but it's all right. So what can you do? Well, you can talk to the International Space Station. With this $25 radio, you can look up when the International Space Station flies over, and you can point this antenna in the direction where it's going, and you can talk to an astronaut. If you build that antenna out of a tape measure, you have a better chance. That's called a Yagi antenna. If you've ever been out to Atwater and helped them hunt for prairie chickens, that's what the antenna looks like, right? If you want to be almost guaranteed, you could get an antenna like this, right? And you can stand out there and track satellites and make contacts with satellites. But you can make your own for relatively inexpensive. For $50, and take the class and spend $50, and you can talk to the International Space Station. You can do Earth, Moon, Earth, or moon bounce. If you ever watched The Big Bang Theory, they all went up to the roof. They shot a beam. It bounced off the moon. It came back, and Penny's like, "That's it," and they're all happy, right? So you can bounce signals off the moon, right? And you can bounce them back to yourself, or you can ricochet them to other people. The moon is it's 500,000 miles round trip. That your signal, that you can send a signal. You can take that antenna and that radio, point it at the moon, hit the button, say something. It'll bounce off and it'll come back. 500,000 miles. It's, what's that? 2 minutes. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 2.5 seconds. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. Somewhere in that area. You can also you can bounce signals off satellites that are already up there. You can bounce satellites off the International Space Station. You can bounce satellites off fragments coming off meteor showers and comets, right? So I don't think I did a slide on this because I didn't want to get too technical. UHF and VHF are line of sight radios, okay? So height is might, you get up high, wherever you can see, that signal can go. So when things are going overhead, there's nothing to block them. So with just 5 watts or 10 watts of power, you can go 500,000 miles, right? To me, it's just amazing. And it's a rabbit hole. And there's people that have satellite dishes, 10-foot satellite dishes and computers and rotators, and, you know, it's as much or as little as you want to spend. Weather balloon. I know we're not fans of balloons here, but I'm going to launch a weather balloon. All right, y'all can get over it. Weather balloons and satellites. So we all have different levels of commitment to conservation. Okay. So Debbie, my girlfriend, saw this balloon right here on the left flying over. It was Wallace, right? It was at our house. She was out birding and saw this balloon, and I had to figure out what the heck it was, right? So I got online. I start looking. And if you look at this other map, that is where the balloon, so the balloon has a transmitter, it flies. People with ham radios hear the beacon beep, and they report it. And that's how they track these balloons. And there has been one that somebody launched a balloon, and it stayed transmitting for 500 days. It made, I think it was 7 trips around the Earth completely. I mean, so we're talking, and there's a lot to it, right? It's not just go out and let a balloon go. You know, you got to do a little bit of math, and which is okay. There's computer programs to help you do the math or find a smart friend. The bottom left is a satellite that ham radio clubs get together. You can actually launch your own satellite into orbit. So that's probably a little out of my price range, but you can do it. One of the other things that you can do with amateur radio is emergency service called ARES. And a lot of your firemen and police guys, ex-military, are into ARES. And what that is, here was some examples of when ARES was deployed, the September 11th attacks. You all remember when, anytime there's a big event, catastrophic event, the cell phone towers go down, right? Nobody's cell phone works. Guess what? With amateur radio, you don't need cell phone. So September 11th, the blackouts, Hurricane Katrina, Missouri, the tornado in Missouri, Boston Marathon bombing, Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Harvey, I think Haiti, when these islands get wiped out, there are people that load up this gear and they go and they set up a relay station, and then they they can send messages, let people know they're safe. Somewhere around in the mid 90s, I was over in Europe in the Army, and Deer Park, the town of Deer Park, switched the area code to the phone numbers. And so I'd been deployed for a while, and I came home and I was calling for months, and every number that I was calling was disconnected, right? Because I had the wrong area code. And one day somebody shows up at Vicenza, Italy on base with a telegram that was my parents went to a guy named Mr. Holly down the street who was a ham radio operator, and he jumped on, said, I'm trying to get a message to a soldier in Europe. And that message went from person to person to person to person to person. And somebody hand delivered that, and it was like a real telegram. It said, Erik, stop. Our new area code is dial 281 don't dial 713 anymore. Right. And anyway, so I went, 4 or 5 months without talking to my parents. And then this dude shows up with a telegram. So it's still used today. It seems silly because we're so used to picking up our phone, right? But y'all know when the phones go out, what happens, right? I mean, everybody freaks out, right? I mean, nobody remembers anybody's phone number. Yeah. The bad part about amateur radio is, you're just throwing it out there in the ether. You don't know who's going to answer, right? May go the long way around. So antenna building. So that is another aspect of amateur radio, and it's one of my favorite parts. So this store-bought antenna, it's called a Yagi. This is a homemade antenna. So if you've never sweated, I hadn't sweated copper since they made you start reclaiming the Freon back in the 90s, so you couldn't do any more side work with AC. But this is an antenna that I made. So I got online, I learned how to solder copper. I took the measurements. There's a lot of math. This antenna is called a Yagi. If you have a friend that has a 3D printer, he printed this hub for me. So if you like 3D stuff, so this would go on top of a 25-foot tower at my house, right? And it's directional, and there's some gain. There's all kinds of stuff that goes with it. But you don't have to do all of that. This right here is speaker wire from the house. The clear brown speaker wire with a $5 adapter on it. And I talked to Sylvania on this wire right here. I bought this fishing pole. And this thing goes, let's see if I can do this. This goes out 25 feet. It'll keep going. It goes out 25 feet, and I put the wire on it. I got this on Temu for $20. So anyway, you can take this and throw it in a tree. I mean, here, pass that around. This is about as simple as it gets. That's probably a $3 antenna. So you don't need, it's not crazy, right? You don't have to get crazy. I do, that's pretty advanced, but it's fun, So what did I do with my remote? Oh. Just speaker wire. Like I said, speaker wire. You can use that on any wire you have laying around. You can take your coax cable and attach it maybe to barbed wire fence. If you do that, you need a tuner, but I don't have a tuner. I cut it to the right length and I get it locked in. It's fascinating stuff if you're into building and numbers and math and weird stuff like that. All right. Anybody recognize that tower?
No.
Come on. Quintana. Yeah, somebody said it. So have y'all ever noticed that antenna on top of Quintana Tower? You ever wonder what it is? I did. I went up and opened the box and read, and then somebody stopped me, and then we had a discussion about it. I took notes. So this system, that antenna, is part of an international Birds Canada MODIS wildlife tracking system. There's 2,000 receiving stations in more than 30 countries that track birds, bats, butterflies, and animals carrying tiny radio transmitters. Now, when you become an licensed amateur radio, you have a set of frequencies and bands that you can operate on. And this wildlife tracking section is reserved for wildlife tracking. Like nobody's talking on there, right? So you have some that are set aside for Morse code, some that are digital, some that you can talk on. And depending on your level, depends on where you can talk and what you can do. So wildlife tracking, I put that on there because theoretically you could go to Atwater with that little radio and this and, find the prairie chickens, right? If you knew the frequency. So here is I haven't dug into MODIS too much, but these are the stations. Look at all the stations that are, I imagine it's kind of like an advanced puck system, the weather puck, or the, what's the one people do in their backyard for the weather? The Coco Ross. Yeah. So look at all these towers, and all these people are receiving and reporting bats, butterfly. I don't know how you get a transmitter on a butterfly. Little circle. Okay. So evidently I was reading online about this a little bit. And evidently it can pick up that signal from 12 miles away. Right. And it said if it flies straight over, there is no limit because we already know we can go 500,000 miles, right? So wildlife tracking, like I said, they have fold-up antennas like this at Atwater where they go out. All the prairie chickens have trackers on them, and they doot, 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 doot. And that big truck, if you've ever seen the truck has the big Yagi antenna on it that spins around. That's what that's doing. That's picking up. And there's a game that they do it at the Boom and Bloom Festival where they go hide a transmitter and then they give the kid the Yagi and the kid gets to go around. Well, adults do that too. It's called fox hunting. And you'll have somebody go hide a transmitter that's beep, and they'll be like, okay, it's in the Houston city limits. And then all these people with those antennas will be running around, driving around, trying to triangulate where this is. All right, slow scan TV. This is another thing that you can do with ham radio if you hook it to your computer or download an app on your phone. Remember the old days of the fax machine? Well, when you go to the slow scan TV frequency, 14230, you'll hear, and if you record that and play it into the app or have it in your phone, you can download photos from the space station. They transmit these from the space station. NASA transmits these. So these were some of the ones that they transmitted. They also recently just did a thing where they had a contest for kids, an art contest, and then they uploaded that artwork into the computer on the International Space Station and transmitted kids' artwork back. And so hams could download these. So they were stored on ISS STV equipment, transmitted from the International Space Station. They sent pictures down to Earth, and hams around the world received and decoded them. So I like all aspects. I like transmitting. I mean, I like learning new things. So I hooked my radio up and went to the slow scan TV frequency. And this is my first partial. I didn't get a full scan. This was the first one. A dog, somebody's dog with their call sign on it. So, I replied back with with a picture of a wolf, right? That's my last name. So. All right. So one of the other things that you can do, and who in here has a ham radio license? So 2 people. Has anybody had one but doesn't anymore? So Lucy, Joyce and Lucy. Lucy told me she used to have one as a kid. She's on vacation right now. Lucy Moyer used to have one. And then Jan told me there's been quite a few people that were interested in it. So we have two here that I think both of them told me they had their technician license. And when you have a technician license, you can talk on UHF, VHF. And we are very fortunate in this area to have all these antenna stations that are linked together called repeaters. And so if I get in my car, I can tune to one of these stations and it's a relay. So I can talk from right south of Kingsville all the way almost to Lake Charles, right? So even though that's way out of line of sight, remember I said UHF and VHF were line of sight? This goes to the antenna retransmits it, and it just keeps going. And then, so it's like CB radio. Think of CB radio, right? Some of y'all are old enough to remember CBs. I had one. So one of the different things between CB radio and ham radio is CB radio is 4 watts, right? 4 watts of power. That's that's your little cube charger, that like cheap cube charger you buy at the gas station. Not the one that comes with your phone, not the fast charger, not the 30-watt one, that cheap one, or enough to power a light bulb. 4 watts. So radio stations like 93Q, KLOL have 100,000 watts of power, right? This radio right here, my big radio has 100 watts, and these, I can't remember, 20 watt. You remember what these are? Yeah, 10, 15, 20 watts. So that's the difference. And with ham radio, you can go up to 1,500 watts. The more watts, the more distance that you, man, that's a horrible thing to say. We'll just pretend that that's right. The more watts, the further you can transmit. There's a lot more to it than that. So the other day, Deb and I were driving around. I had my radio on, and 2 guys were talking about, we were on this Crossroads Ham Radio Club linked repeater system. And a guy was talking about working at the rail yards and how he hates his job, and they got bought and they're going back and forth. And Deb says, why doesn't he just call him on the phone? So it's definitely not for everybody. Okay. It's not for everybody. I enjoy it. I enjoy, listening. And that type of talk is called rag chew. Right. That's what the old men that you see at Whataburger that all sit around at drink coffee at Whataburger, and they're there every morning and they're chewing the fat. Well, same thing on ham radio. There are these guys that meet every day at 8 a.m. on this channel, and you get to listen to the latest medical test they had done, and they're and it's all just nonsense, nothing of any substance, so you get to talk about blood sugar and diabetes, So if that interests you, then maybe rag chewing's for you, So you can join a net, right? If you have an amateur radio license, I'd kind of mention it. So there's the Maritime Mobile Service Network. Network stands for net. Mobile Service Net. Been going on since 1968. Every day people get on and they help monitor the seas for people that break down, need help, need assistance. They can relay to the Coast Guard or whatever they need to do. There's there's another net that's been since 1953. They meet. There's a military. There's a group of vets that meet. There's all kinds of things. There's the Old Man International Sideband Society. OMIS is what they call it. OMIS, and it's just you don't have to be an old man, but it helps. So you can join a net, and so the Crossroads Ham Radio Repeat network on Thursdays. Thursday night they hold a net at 7, and they get on and they say, "Okay, we're going to start the net. Who do we have here?" And so I would say KI5 QVM. And he was like, KI5, QVM, we got you in the log. And they go down and 30 people check in. And then they ask a question. Hey, what is something new that you learned with ham radio in the last 2 weeks? KI5, QVM, go. And then I just speak about what I learned. And then they can ask questions, and then you go on to the next guy. And it's really just an exercise in communication, making sure your radio works and getting set up, and really using it for communication like it was originally designed for. So some of the people that like computers may like to go digital, right? And the new radios have digital things built in. So this radio right here, you can see it in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. It's plugged in. I've got it plugged into my computer. On the left, the red are all the countries that I've made contact with. And if you look on the right, the map, you can see all these lines going back and forth. That is other people having conversations that you can watch in real time. And that weird looking thing in the middle, they call that a waterfall. That shows how much traffic is on that frequency. And this is more about testing your antennas and propagation and things like that. You can hook your radio up. You have a new antenna. This is only at 30 watts. So I'm only doing 30 watts. And is anybody listening? Somebody hits their mouse. Yes, I'm listening. And then the computer does the rest. We go back and forth and we send a signal report. And then we complete the transaction and I hit log and it logs it. And you can, it's neat to make contact to know that like that antenna reached Russia on an antenna that I made on 30 watts of power. So there's a lot going on. So we have a bunch of different layers, right? You have the E layer, the F layer, the D layer, things like the stratosphere, and you got, and then you have the gray line where the sunset and the sunrise, right? It looks like that. It's like a sinusoidal wave. And then you have sunspots. So all that, when there's a sun flare, I can't remember, 8 minutes. I think a sun flare can affect radio transmissions in 8 minutes from the time it flares. And so you can go online, and there's people way smarter than me, and I didn't post a picture of it because it's a little advanced, but it's all these numbers, and it's the maximum usable frequency, the minimum, they call that the MUF, the maximum usable frequency, the MUF. And then you got all these things that play into if the bands are open or not. So some bands, like with this antenna, this one that I made right here, in the daytime, I'm almost guaranteed to get a contact. Almost guaranteed. With this one, almost guaranteed. If I go to like a 40-meter band, this is a nighttime band, or 10-meter, if there's sunspots, 10-meter will not work. So you got to mess around, and you're looking for propagation. You're looking for the bands to be open. There's all kinds of things that affect radio signals. So there's a science to it. And there's people that spend all day studying that, and they never get on the radio. I just hook that stuff up and try it. That's my method, right? So you can join a club. We have 2 huge, super active clubs in the area. The Katy Amateur Radio Society is a club. And if you thought the average age of a Texas Master Naturalist was high, if any of y'all want to feel like young spring chickens, go to one of these clubs. So the Brazos Valley Amateur Radio Club, the Texas DX Society, right? We'll talk about DX in a second. But these are all clubs, and they're similar to this. They have a meeting, you go, somebody will teach how to do antennas, somebody will teach how to do moon bounce or talk to the space station. Very interesting. They do breakfast, 7 a.m. breakfast in, 2 hours from here, right? And then there's still people that do Morse code. So one of the big holdups for me is a young kid and knowing and being interested in amateur radio was Morse code. You used to have to learn Morse code to get an amateur radio license. How do you learn Morse code? As a 10-year-old kid in the 80s, right? I mean, I don't know. I didn't know. I knew one ham operator that, was 30 minutes away, So they did away with that, and it really opened the door for more people to get their license. Now, there are a lot of old men that are not happy about that, right? They call those people sad hams, right? Sad hams. So the person that teaches you in the ham radio world, if you find somebody, if you go to one of these clubs, you'll meet an old man that is nice, and he wants to teach you everything and take you under his wing. He's called an Elmer. That's the name, Elmer. The one that's grumpy, sad ham, that's what they call him. So QRP is only 5 watts of power. So there are people that do Morse code on what it takes to light up a Christmas light bulb, that little bitty light bulb, and they're contacting all over the world. So I mentioned DX. This is one of my favorite things. So DX means distant stations, and for us, it's anything not in the lower 48. So Alaska and Hawaii count, even though they're not foreign countries. So here are some of the places that I've talked to on voice. Hawaii, Alaska, Northern Ireland, Spain, Italy, Puerto Rico, Martinique, Caraco, Costa Rica, Panama, Honduras, Colombia, Venezuela, Chile, and Argentina, Australia, and Guam, all on antennas that I made out of speaker wire, right? Super interesting. Then you go look up that person's back on that page that I showed you, the QRC, read about the person, and then you send out what's called QSL cards. And this goes back to the days of CB, before the internet and all that. So if you make contact with somebody, you can go into the QRZ and get their address and mail them a postcard, and they will mail you a postcard back. So I got Spain and different countries, and I sent out, if you see Colombia, Austria, Mexico, North Pole, Alaska. So I sent those. I put a $2 bill in each one to pay for postage back, and I'm hoping to get postcards back, and then I'll put them in a book and, I don't know, look at them when nobody's home. So the other day I talked to this battleship, the Battleship Iowa. It's a museum battleship that's docked. They let radio clubs go and use the radio room and talk on that battleship, right? So I had to they wouldn't do, they're still worried about COVID, so you couldn't do a lick envelope. You had to do a self-stick envelope. So I had to go buy some self-stick envelopes, and I hadn't mailed it out yet. But I'm hoping to get that postcard back. And this weekend, I think it's this weekend, is a Ships on the Air event, and there's going to be over 100 ships, radio clubs, transmitting from battleships and naval ships, and I'm sure that there's probably going to be some cargo ships in there too. But as you make contacts, you can exchange postcards with people, which, I don't know, when's the last time you sat down and actually wrote something out and went and got a stamp and mailed it, So the nostalgia's there. I like it. So I was at Atwater, and I had my antenna set up, and I talked to a guy in Arizona. We made the contact. So normally a conversation from the park will, I say CQ POTA, Parks on the Air. CQ Parks on the Air, CQ Parks on the Air. This is Kilo India 5, Quebec Victor Mike. And then they just answer with their call. They'll say W7YBY. And then I say, W7YBY, go ahead. And he's like, hey, I'm in Arizona. I can hear you. Gives me a signal report. 5-9. Your signal sounds good. You're legible. You're 9 on the SWR meter. And hey, I've been to Atwater before. Did you see any prairie chickens? And we have a little conversation, right? So we do that. We finish. I make a couple more contacts, and then he gets back on and he says, hey, man, we already talked, but are you dating a girl named Debbie? And I said, yeah. And then I look at his name. I pull up the contact name, and it is a guy that Debbie and I used to ride motorcycles with 15 years ago that moved to Arizona. Now, I don't have a picture of the band plan for radio, but let's just pretend there's 20 different bands and there's 500 different stations on per band. So to have my antenna pointed in Arizona and his antenna pointed at me, and we chose the same frequency, we chose the same time and all that is, I don't know what the odds are, but they got to be pretty small. But anyway, now we've reconnected and we talk, and this is his dad's old. So he was fortunate enough. His dad was in the military, this guy, and that was his dad's call sign, W7YBY. And he put in to get they gave him a call sign, and he put in to get his dad's old call sign, and they issued it to him. That's his dad. His dad's the third one on the right there, third one from the right. But anyway, so his card's in the, he's got his card and his dad's going around. But anyway, small world, the chances of that happening, if you ever do ham radio, if you decide to do this and you have a hard time making a contact, remember this story, like, oh my God, he found somebody that he knew. So I talked to Guam, and I went and looked at Guam's radio station set up, and you can see they've got fancy antennas. They have some fancy store-bought antennas, and then they have a radio room. So there's big stations. So one of the fun things for me is getting out of the house with the radio and getting out in nature. And there is no shortage of that. There is SOTA, which is Summits on the Air, where you take your radio, hike to the top of a summit, activate it. Activate it is usually 10 contacts. You have islands on the air, where you go to an island. Lighthouses on the air, bunkers on the air, castles on the air, beaches on the air, mills on the air. You want to go to old flour mill or windmill? You can do that. And my favorite on the air, besides POTA, Walmart parking lots on the air. So if you think about it, a lot of people that are in the age where ham radio may be attractive may also find RVing a lot of fun. And, they stop at Walmart, sleep in the parking lot like a homeless person with their $2,000 radio and their big antenna. And if you'll notice, it's hard to see, but see that antenna? That's it right there. That's not my photo. I haven't not done Walmarts on the air. There's only one in my area in the Sealy, and I'm not sure how many people would, All right. Walmart parking lots on the air. Yeah. So what we all led up to today is parks on the air, right? POTA, parks on the air. So this is at Stephen F. Austin State Park. Oh man. This is at Stephen F. Austin State Park, and I'm set up with my radio, my battery. So here's my battery, my radio, my battery, and that extending fishing pole, and that little antenna in the bag that's being passed around. So in 2012, there's a amateur radio group called Worldwide Flora and Fauna and Amateur Radio. And it really encouraged people to get outside, right? I mean, that was the whole thing. You got these people, where you keep your ham radio is called your shack. And some of them are literally shacks. Some of them are nicer than my house. But so get out of your shack and get out in nature. And that's still going on. But it kind of fell. It's not very popular in the U.S. right now. In 2016, the American Radio Relay League ran a one-year event called National Parks on the Air. And man, it was super popular. So the American Radio Relay League is the voice of amateur radio with the FCC. So they do training, they help you get your license, they have books, they do courses and classes, and they lobby, and they try to get us more frequencies and all that. So ARRL, most ham radio operators are a member of ARRL. So they did it for 1 year, and it was super popular, and it was only national parks. In 2018, Parks on the Air was invented with its mission to encourage licensed amateur radio operators to enjoy and operate portable equipment from public lands. Program aims to promote emergency communication awareness, advanced technical operating skills, foster a global community, demonstrate the hobby positively, and it blends the love for the outdoors with radio technology, motivating operators to venture into natural locations and preserve environmental awareness. And there's leave no trace all over their website. I mean, they really push the leave no trace thing. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of debate. Everybody's committed to conservation at different levels, right? There are some people that won't even put a stake in the ground in the radio group because they feel like that leaves a trace. I'll pound something in the ground so fast, I don't think it's any different than a tent stake, But anyway, so leave no trace. They push that, and they want you to get out in the park. And I'll tell you, I was out at Atwater, and I had the antenna up, and a lady pulled up and asked what I was doing. And then I was getting ready to put the antenna up, and I told her what I was doing, and she asked if I knew where the prairie chickens were, and I did know where the prairie chickens were. So I took her, and we looked at prairie chickens. So then we talked about Texas Master Naturalist and all that good stuff. So just the fact that she stopped to talk to me about what I'm doing out there is it's good, right? Generates conversation in nature. So there's 88,000 users on Parks on the Air. There's 87,000 parks. So this isn't like a small thing. There were 36,000 parks activated. So again, activating a park means I go to the park and I make 10 contacts. 36,000. And then the QSOs, meaning conversations that were recorded and logged, were 15 million conversations just in the parks. So if you look, so this map was really weird. If I zoom in, it only populates the area I zoom in because there's just too many dots, right? So anyway, Atwater Prairie Chicken National Wildlife Refuge, all those other yellow dots are places or parks that I can go to that are either national, state park, national park, historic sites, or there's a new one, Texas Natural Area, Texas Nature Areas, I think is what they're called. Texas Nature Areas. Anyway, so if you look here at Atwater, if you click on Atwater, it gives you the information. And if you look at the park leader, number 1, KI5QVM, that's me, 13 activations at the park. So I've been out there 13 times, and I've talked to 701 people from inside the park, right? Since March, since March. So 700 people since March. If you look down at the stats down there, 102 people have activated that park. So I don't know if I've seen 102 people at Atwater ever, So somebody's going out there, this K5LLM guy, I got to find him. See why he's, in my territory. So I got up super early one morning, about 30 minutes before sunup, because they don't have the gate working at Atwater. So, if you don't act a fool, nobody will mess with you. So I went out there and I have this extendable 25-foot mast that goes in my trailer hitch, and I built this antenna. And just about the time I'm getting it all set up, Brooke, the manager of Atwater, pulls up and says, "What in the hell are you doing?" So we talked about it, and she was okay with it. And one of the maintenance guys out there is also a ham radio operator. So there's all kinds of ways I also have a mag mount that I stick on my, like the old CB 5-inch magnet with the whip. So you don't have to get crazy like this. And we did it off Debbie's Subaru. So, that's at least half of y'all probably, right? All right. There's the contacts that I made that day from the park, right? That's all voice contacts that I talked to. And if you go to Florida, that signal travels really good across the Gulf, but it starts getting exciting when you get like Minnesota, New York, stuff like that. There's when I'm in the truck, that's what it looks like. So the fluorescent green one is my VHF, UHF radio for rag chewing. And then the one above the steering wheel is my HF. And then my computer is an aid where I log every conversation. So I've logged every conversation that I've ever had on my radio, right? So that's part of being a responsible ham radio operator is you keep a log of at least the band, the kind of within an hour of the time and who you talk to, right? And that's how you get the awards and things like that. Here's another one. I was at a different location in Atwater with only one, that's nice. So when when I made this graphic, it was up to date. It's not anymore, but those are all contacts made from Atwater right there. So in Atwater. So you see Manitoba up there all the way to Manitoba. I mean, it pretty much covers pretty much everything. Oh. So there's two, that's a good question. She asked if the contacts are in another park. So part of Parks on the Air, there's three different aspects. You can be an activator where I go to the park and I transmit and I say, hey, I'm in a park. Does anybody want to talk? And people call me. The people that call me back are called hunters. They may be at their house or in their ham shack and they're looking for anybody. We just had a friend that he contacted all 50 states. He talked to somebody he talked to a park in all 50 states. He was hunting. The other thing is a park to park, and those go to the front of the line. There's a few things that go to the front of the line in ham radio. A park to park. So I've got a number on here where I can show you how many park to parks I've done. So I've talked to people in other parks. So there's me activating it, or I can sit at home and talk to people in parks, or I can do a park to park. The other, so park to parks, when you call CQ POTA, sometimes there's 50 people. K7J, Papa America, and you're trying to, if you hear park to park, that always goes to the front. The other thing that goes to the front in ham radio are kids. They move to the front of the line. They always get responded to. And they kindly refer to women in ham radio as YLs, which is young ladies. And it doesn't matter if this lady's 100 years old. She's a YL, and she goes to the front of the line. So you got to be careful, though. There's a couple of guys that sound like they're 80-year-old women that I misgendered, and they don't even go for that on ham radio stuff, So this, if you look behind this table, you'll see these four gray posts, and then you'll see a piece of PVC. That piece of PVC is this sticking in it, and those posts are some ground radials that are that antenna. I can get that antenna up in like 5 minutes now, and those are from electric fence things you stick in the ground, So I went to San Felipe, D. Austin, and activated it. That's a different type of antenna. You can see it comes out. And then to the right is this weekend, Deb, for her birthday, we went to the hill country and we did birding, but we also hit 7 state parks, nature areas, or historical sites. And you can see on her Subaru, I've just got that little mag mount right there with a whip antenna. So it doesn't have to get crazy. You don't have to build your own stuff. You can do store bought. We went to the monument one day, went to see my mom over in Deer Park, and then we swung by the monument. And that day, I got home and I looked, and somebody else was in the monument operating on the other side. We didn't even see each other. Because the way radio waves travel, like I have only talked to one person in Texas on HF during the park, because the way the radiation angles and all that, goes like this, and it just bounces right over, bounces. So only thing that impacts it is solar flares, and sunset and sunrise. So we went to, what is this, Goliad or Gonzales? Goliad. So we went, and while you're doing radio, you can also get a little history lesson. And if you go to Goliad, they got some chainmail and a hat they'll let you wear. So they also had a very cool. They also had Has anybody been to that place? A couple of few people. They also have a display up of handmade thread that they dyed with natural plants and mushrooms. It's very cool. It's very cool. Yeah. So, but I don't know. The chainmail won that day. So that's my radio. So I put this battery in this little battery box thing. Lets me charge my phone, all kinds of stuff. And then that's my radio in the carry-on right there. All right. So I was asked about are people in parks when I talk to them. So I've activated 23 parks in Texas. So Deb and I think Deb went with me for all of them. We went to 23 different parks and I activated them. I've hunted 361 parks. So I've talked to 361 people since March who are in parks. I have 5 states left. I've talked to somebody in every state but 5. I need 5 states left. And then I talked to 317 people while I was in a park, and they were in a park. So, and then I have all time in just park stuff. I have 1,400 contacts since April. Since April. I mean, March. I'm sorry, March. And then like our little badges or pins that we get, if you'll notice, there's awards, right? Bronze activator, silver hunter, sapphire hunter, Arizona agave hunter, and they're all named after plants and things like that. Rover Warthog is doing 5 parks in one day. And then there's special events that go on where they encourage you to get out, and they'll bring schools out and things like that. And that's just the 2 yellow ones. Support your local parks. Anyway, a lot of different awards that you can get, very similar to our pins that we get, right? And you can print them and hang them in your shack. That's what was on the wall back, Tim Allen, that wall on the left. There's things like contact 100 countries, contact 100 people on 5 different bands, contact, all kinds of, it's endless, it's limitless. So here's some of the countries that I've talked to on voice mode. Austria was pretty cool, Bermuda, Honduras, Guam, Slovenia. So Slovenia, I had the mag mount on my truck, and I'm sitting out in my yard, and I can hear this guy calling from Slovenia, and man, there's a million people trying to get to this cat, and I can't get through because I just had that little mag mount. And Deb is birding in the kitchen, looking out, and she sees me just drive up in the yard. I jump out. I got my antenna going up. I'm trying to build. She comes out. Are you okay? Are you okay? Like, I'm good. I'm trying to get this up. And I got the antenna up real fast and jumped back in, and he answered my call. So I talked to a guy in Slovenia, which is right. So the one antenna didn't work. It works most of the time, right? It didn't work that time. So you gotta change your approach, right? And that's some of the appeal, I think. And some antennas do better. This square antenna, you just for simplicity's sake, if I put out 100 watts, it has a multiplier of 2, where it's like I'm putting out 200 watts or 300 watts. Some of them are directional, where like this one, wherever I point it is where the signal is going to be. And where I turn it like this matters too. Whereas the one on my car transmits in all directions, right? So, and then on digital mode, I was talking about where you can hook it up to the computer and kind of let the computer do a lot. Here are the places I talk. Yes. 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 Yeah. So everybody's in English. It's not always good English. I talked to a guy the other day, and it took me about 15 minutes. So when you're on UHF and VHF, it's quiet, and then somebody talks, and you hear them just like a walkie-talkie. Like when you're walking around, the walkie-talkie's not making noise until somebody keys the mic and talks. On HF, it's different. There is static, right? There's a noise floor. And you're tuning in and you're trying to hear that guy, and the propagation's changing, and the sun flares are going off, and the ionosphere is doing some weird stuff, and the skip's in and it's not in, and you got all kinds of things going on. Maybe there's a neighbor's running a generator, or you're near a power line. So there's all these things that are going on that make it hard to hear. It's not like you and I are talking. It's noisy, and you're really trying to focus and listen. If you get somebody that's full quiet that knocks all that out, that's a good thing. But most of the time, you're really trying to like, man, what is it? What's he saying? And then when you mix in the language barrier, and you're also talking numbers and things that don't make sense. So he's saying JE1AU2 is his call sign. And I mean, it's not like he's saying a word that I can recognize. This is just jumbled numbers. And so they do speak, it is all in English. If you're in another country, there's different rules where you may have to transmit your call sign in their language, and everything after that is in English. So I'm not sure how we won that, right? But we did. So everything's in English. So in the FT8 digital mode, again, where you're not talking, here are the places that I've contacted. And again, this was within like I messed with FT8 digital like for half a day, like on 30 watts, and this is all the contacts that I made. So anyway, it's super interesting to experiment, get outside, and get people interested and excited. It's exciting. It's exciting when you think about the technology, and if you can get kids in it. We always talk about you protect what you love. You get them outside, you get them going to the parks. We get some ham radio stuff going on. They get to talk to an astronaut. That stuff's pretty cool. I would love for my nephew to come out and maybe get to talk to Venezuela or someplace, because he watches soccer. I don't know what country has the best soccer player, but he'd be pretty pumped about that. So, yes.
Especially countries where they control.
Yes. So there's only one country right now that we can't talk to, and it's North Korea. And there's a so ham radio is monitored by ham radio. The FCC ultimately sets the rules, but it's really self-monitored by VEs, ham radio operators. Think of a HOA, Karen, right? There's some of those that monitor the radio frequencies, and they point out if you mess up. If you transmit on a frequency you're not supposed to be on, as a general, if I transmit on an extra frequency, they may get on and tell me, hey, I notice you're transmitting out of your band. But is the FCC going to do anything? You really gotta mess up for the FCC to take action. And if you were to talk to North Korea, I don't know that anything would happen, but by international agreement, you're not supposed to, right? And if you take your license, if you take your technician license, we'll talk about that in a second. Take your technician license, they go over that, right? On who you can and can't talk to. Right now, it's real easy. No North Korea. If I heard North Korea calling, well, we may have to agree to disagree on, so on what's man's law or not. So if you're interested, well, first of all, if anybody is interested in seeing this in action, please hit me up, and I can meet you at Stephen F. Austin. Atwater's a little bit easier, even though there's no picnic benches, because internet works at Atwater. Internet does not work at Stephen F. Austin very well, and it's easier to show you some of the tools on the computer if we're out or we can go to Brazos Bend. I went to Brazos Bend, has some great spots. But anyway, if anybody's interested in that, you can talk under my call sign if you're interested. The two guys that are technicians, if y'all ever want to get together, hit me up. If you're interested in ham radio, you can, it's a 400 questions pool that they pull from, and there's 35. It's a 35 question test, multiple choice from 400 questions, and they give you the questions. They're online, or you can buy the book, or you can download an app, and you memorize the right answers. You don't have to understand it right now. The understanding comes later. You're just trying to get licensed. You get licensed, then the learning starts, right? Then once you get your technician license and you pass, they'll say, hey, do you want to take your general? And you say no, and they're like, it's free. And you're like, okay. And then you fail it. And then when you go take your general, they try to get you to take the extra. And you go to a library. I went to a library in Rosenberg. And there was a bunch of old men sitting around, waiting on me. And I paid my $15, and I took the test, and they told me that I got it. And there's a lot of free information online. There's tons of YouTube videos. I bought this app that does like 5-minute videos in the morning. So Deb would get up, come in there, and there'd be this dude in one of those goofy flat hats like golfers wear. And, he's like, the resistivity of a 7 ohm, so you listen to that in 10-minute increments, and then you take a test. And little kids pass it. So you can too, if you're interested. Right? So here's some famous, this isn't completely accurate. I pulled this up. Here's some better known ham radio operators. Walter Cronkite was a ham. Joe Walsh, any Eagles fans? Yeah, Joe Walsh. I mean, how cool would that be so there is a app that you can get where you could type in that call sign, WB6ACU, and as soon as somebody logs that he is on the radio, you'd get a text message, right? So then you can go put your antenna up, or go to your radio and try to talk to Joe Walsh, right? Yeah. Oh, Bill, yes. Do you have a question? Who? You have a question? Oh, now you don't. Now no more, since there's no requirement, people are getting on there, 5 words a minute. It used to be 5 and 15, I think. But I mean, there's people that do. You only do Morse code. So he asked what the speed of Morse code is. You used to have to do 5 words a minute with 0 errors or something like that. You always match the speed of the person sending the Morse code. So and at what speed you can copy. So if you can only do 5 words a minute, that means every conversation you're going to have is 5 words a minute until you get better, right? And Morse code, I tried to start learning it. We're not there yet. We're going to need to come up with a different technique or something. Do you know Morse code? Did you learn it in the military? 30 words a minute. There you go. Oh, it wouldn't be no problem for you to get back into it, man. So Tim Allen, like I said, that's the call sign from the radio show. That's not his real call sign. John Glenn, the astronaut. Joe Taylor, Nobel Prize winning astrophysicist. Joe Taylor. So Joe Taylor, at the very start, there was the map. Let's see if I can go back. And it was that far back. That map right there. So that's a thing called WSPR, WSPR, and that's that's to test propagation. Do y'all see that? Do y'all see that gray line above the gray line at the top that kind of follows the arc from like Houston, like this right here? This gray line right here? Yeah. So right, that's called the gray line. So the gray line is called the gray line, and that has to do with sunset and sunrise, and that does affect propagation and things like that. But anyway, the Nobel Peace Prize dude, he invented this technology to test signals like this, where you can send 5 watts and your computer picks it up and kind of processes it, and you can hear it way below the noise floor, what your voice can hear. But he's still super active in all aspects of radio. Oh, somebody over there in karate is getting whooped. All right. Barry Goldwater, a little bit before my time. Some of y'all may know who that is. I don't know. I think he's dead. These are just some famous ones. No. I mean, because Walter Cronkite's been dead for a long time. And then one of the big prizes, if you could get a DX or a postcard from, is like the King Hussein of Jordan, right? Like if you talk to a king, it's a pretty big deal. So anyway, there's also special events that they'll get together. Different groups will get together. I talked to a lady the other day that was honoring. They were, I forget where they were doing it from, Canada somewhere. They were honoring nurses, right? So they give you a spiel and a website to go to, and it's about nurses. And then there was the ragtime festival. I forget the guy's name. He did a lot for ragtime music. They were at the museum and they were transmitting from the museum, and so you go down that rabbit hole and read about ragtime. So there's my QSL card. That is the windmill before they took it down at Atwater, and 73 is how you end a transmission. Comes from a lot of the terminology and slang that is used in amateur radio comes back from a time of Morse code. So 73, QSL, the QSL card, the confirmation card. You can say, if somebody says, "Did you get that?" QSL, you say QSL, right? Like, I understand. That means, did you copy? So that came from typing QSL in Morse code. Evidently, that's easier to type than, "Hey, did you understand what I was saying?" So, and 73 is a way to end a conversation. It is a catch-all. 73 means, thank you, good night. Thank you all for, at the end of your transmission, you say that. So, anybody have any questions? Yes. Oh, I didn't. There's two POTA. Let's see if I don't even think I took a picture of it. If you type in Parks on the Air, POTA, it will pull up an instruction, and then there's an app one. POTA.app, app, pulls up the map and the call, who's on the air. And I should have done that. Is there a way to, are we internet here? Can I pull up internet?
So you're waiting on that. What is the highest number of contacts you've made
in one day? Probably like 150, but I'll tell you, I know some of y'all won't believe this, but I get tired of talking a little bit, after. So this battery, so Deb and I did, 5 parks, and I 5 parks and firing it up and talking and stuff. So this will probably go this battery right here will probably go 4 hours, 5 hours of nonstop talking. There's people that go out and do 1,000 contacts. I mean, there's people that'll go to a park, they'll put up an antenna, and they're going to make the weekend out of it. And they stay there, and they just, and whenever there is a, thank you. I want to make that bigger. I don't see this window here. I don't see the make it bigger.
Oh. Right.
Did I do something?
No.
Oh, there we go. That's it. So yeah, you can go out and they do events where what are they called? Field days. They'll do field days where they'll bring people out. If you're interested in learning more, you can look up Amateur Radio Field Day. One of those groups that I mentioned, the BVARC or the Katie, they'll do a field day where they'll set up radios and they'll let people get on, and they will run 24/7. They have shifts and there's contests. They're wondering how many contacts they can make in one day, and they are just hitting it and hammering it. And there's no, Hey, what's going on? Did you see a prairie chicken? These people are like, signal report, call sign, next, and they just go, 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 go. I kind of like chatting with people. So for Parks on the Air, so this is the website for Parks on the Air. And if you go here, so I talk on 20 meter most of the time, and I want to do phone. Phone is voice, they say. So here's who all is 45 seconds ago, that top left, 45 seconds ago, there was a guy at Lake Canosa State Park in Wisconsin, and somebody heard him. So I could tune my radio if I had an antenna plugged in to 14317, and I could listen for him calling CQ POTA, and then I could say Kilo India 5 Quebec Victor Mike and hope that he answers me. And then I can go and look, and if I hover over his name is William Butler out of Arkansas, so he must be on vacation. He's in Wisconsin right now, and he's hunted 398 parks. He made 600 contacts, 21 awards. You know, so you can just read about the person, and sometimes it's pretty interesting. Ran into somebody that was stationed at the same military base as me back in the day. Somebody that volunteered out at Atwater once while coming through camping while I was at Atwater. Somebody else recommended Stephen F. Austin State Park while I was at Atwater, that was their favorite park when they come to Texas. So it's what you make it. A lot to learn, a lot to explore and tinker with and get outside. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yes. With what were you're prepping me? Who? Which? Oh yeah. Oh yes. That's good. So I talked to a guy in an 18-wheeler. He was from Texas and he was in California, and I thought, that's pretty cool, you know. And then right after that, got a guy saying that he was calling me from an airplane. So I talked to a guy that was a personal pilot flying over Kansas. I think it was Kansas. And anyway, so now I'm eyeing those gliders in Wallace.
Yeah.
Have you ever if you've ever driven through Wallace, there's a glider, what do they call that? Glider airport or something? I don't know. But for $100, you can go up in the glider where they pull you up and let you go, and you just glide. I was thinking maybe I can make a contact from a glider, you know. I don't know how far those gliders go, but if he could glide me over one of the parks, that'd be even better. Yes, ma'am. So the question was, when you make contact, what do you talk about? That's a good question. It kind of depends on what you're going to do. If you're just going like when the Slovenia guy called out and there's 100 people in line to talk to him, you get I got your signal report. It's 5-9. I read you 5-9. I'm in Texas. And he says, thanks for the 5-9 in Texas. I'm 5-9 in Slovenia. And the transmission's over. That's very quick. You're just doing the signal report. When you're just talking, you can just rag chew. If you're rag chewing or you're DXing, you can talk about the weather is super popular because obviously somebody in Asiatic Russia has different weather. And so you're like, oh, it's 100 degrees here. And they're like, 100 degrees, you know. And you talk if you're in a park, you can talk about the park. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, would it be an outreach event? I talked to plenty of people about prairie chickens on the prairie chicken was probably uttered more times over the airwaves in the last 3 months than it probably ever has in its life. I talked about prairie chickens a lot and in the park. So and then I ask other people about their park. You know, hey, what are you doing? Where are you at? You in Florida? Hey, I see that your call signs registered in Wyoming and you're in Florida now. Oh yeah, it's too, you know, I'm an RVer, you know, and then just talk about that. And I've had plenty of people in I told them I was going to Florida, and they're like, "Hey, swing by and we'll treat you to dinner." And it's like, okay, well, maybe, yeah, all right, maybe drive by first and check out where check out the situation. So, any other questions? So I know this isn't typically yes, Bert.
Just from the chat, Grand Poobah sends his best wishes.
Oh man, I missed him. I had a joke for him, but we'll do it in person later.
And Cindy Carullo says, great presentation, Erik.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that I was worried that this is so we didn't get too technical. Like this is, I would say that this is the 30,000 foot view of ham radio, right? It can be as little or as much as you want it to be, and you can just go buy a cheap radio, put it in your car with a antenna, and you can talk like CB radio type talk with the repeaters. That doesn't appeal to me as much as the countries, talking to other countries, especially when it's a country where you've been. I talked to a guy, the Austrian kid. I've been to Austria, right? So gave him a quick mention about that. And sometimes they're receptive, and then sometimes they just want to make the next contact. So you just gotta feel it out. So, any other questions? No. If anybody wants to go play on radio, hit me up. I'm a kept man now, so I got a lot of free time.